welcome to Feminine Founder, where we talk all things recruiting, hiring, business, and entrepreneurship. I'm Caroline Pennington, your host. Today I have Sallie Holder with me. Sallie is a former attorney turned business coach and the founder of the BRIMM. So welcome, Sallie.
Thank you, Caroline. I'm so excited to be here.
So I'd love to hear your story. You went to law school in South Carolina and you were an attorney for many, many years, and you pivoted in your career the past 5 years into working for yourself and becoming a seven-figure founder. So I'd love to hear your story about how you did that.
Sure. It wasn't easy. I will definitely admit that. I knew somewhat early on I wasn't completely fulfilled in my law practice, but I thought it would just get better. And as time went on, it just wasn't getting better. And I felt really ashamed to actually admit that to anyone, because I had this version of external success and people would always say, "Oh, you must be so happy." And to have this wild difference between what the world saw and what I really felt about myself was painful. And so I always tell people, when I got to a point where the potential pain of change no longer outweighed the pain of staying the same, outweighed the potential pain of change. You get the gist of what I was saying. So staying the same was too painful, and I really wanted a roadmap to be able to create something for myself. The problem was everybody I went to would tell me, "Oh, well, then you can be a general counsel, you can start your own law firm, and everything had a relationship to the exact skill set that I said I did not enjoy. So I found that really challenging, and it made me feel really disheartened because I thought, well, I don't have any skills. And that couldn't have been further from the truth, right? We all develop all kinds of incredible skills along the way. I had been also simultaneously running a nonprofit. I'd been on other nonprofit boards, managing budgets. I'd been the chair of the finance committee for our church, managing budgets. So all different kinds of skills I was picking up over my 10-year career of practicing law. It just took me being able to own those and really examine them with a fresh lens. And once I finally did that, I was able to finally venture out on my own. Not to say it wasn't scary then, because it was, but at some point you just have to take the leap.
Did any of the skills that you had as an attorney translate over to a business owner?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, that's a great question, given what I just said. I mean, there were so many other things that we did within the practice that I wasn't thinking about at all. I mean, really, I practiced labor and employment litigation. And so everything I did had to do with the employer-employee relationship. So it had to do with hiring. It had to do with what a PTO policy should look like, who should sign non-compete agreements, who should sign employment agreements, confidentiality, you name it. And so what I realized very quickly was, wow, there are a lot of other female founders out there that don't know about all of these kind of startup documents that they ought to have in place to protect themselves. And really, it's cost prohibitive for them to go and hire my old firm, which is amazing, but it just simply is, right? I was 27 charging $350 an hour. So it just is crazy expensive. And so I really found it incredibly rewarding at the beginning of my business when I was able to talk through all of these concepts with new founders and discuss some of the potential pitfalls that they could potentially face along the way. And I loved that. And I still use it today. I mean, I had a client text me just yesterday about a PTO policy and how they should administer it. So, right, it never goes away. You're always capable of using the skills that you have in whatever career. And they're so much more translatable than we give ourselves credit for. I mean, so much more translatable.
You make a great point there, because you enter into the era of you don't know what you don't know, but those baseline things you just mentioned that you learned as an attorney, like how to hire, how to fire, what kind of questions you can ask, what you cannot ask, those get to be very expensive mistakes. And you're right, you have to go hire an employment lawyer for $300 an hour, which that's not cheap, because depending on the scenario, that could get expensive really fast.
Yeah, I know. And I didn't want them to face any of the terrible scenarios that I had already seen, right, with some of the larger businesses. And right, depending on what business or what type of business you're in, that may be something that you've already experienced. I hope not.
What is the biggest challenge that you faced as a business owner?
I really do think that the answer to that question differs depending on what day it's asked, because there are all kinds of challenges that we face. I definitely believe that mindset and confidence is a huge hurdle for most female entrepreneurs. It definitely has been for me, because so much of entrepreneurship is about being okay with hearing no over and over and over again, right? I mean, the statistics are generally you get one yes for every 100 leads. And that's really hard to face. And especially if you have been in a more corporate environment, you're just not used to that, right? You're not kind of trained to endure that level of no. Many times clients are just handed to you, so you haven't experienced it. And that takes a lot of gumption to still believe in yourself after hearing that day after day. I think that, we all have to work on the inside as much as we work on the outside, right? I mean, we need to work on our external facing Instagram and all those things for sure, because, your brand is important, but so are you, and how you feel and what you think. And the emotional energy that you bring to the table every day is so much more important than I think that people today are just not acknowledging how important that is. And they think if I just put it on Instagram and make everything look pretty, then everything will be fine. But I mean, there really is such a thing as law of attraction, and your energy that you bring to your business matters. So, and that is all dependent on how you feel about you. And so, I think between that, and then I could go super tactical with leads, like a lack of leads is I see a constant issue that most female entrepreneurs struggle with. And I think that the two kind of play off of each other, right? You're far less likely to reach out to generate sales, to come with a confident mindset that's necessary to reach out to 100 people. You're not going to do that if you're not thinking and really believing in yourself. And mainly the lack of leads ends up coming about because people don't understand how to create a true sales process, right? One that they are generating, right? Not you sitting back and waiting for the clients to come to you. I always talk about sales and lead generation as a tennis match, and your job is to never leave the tennis ball in the other person's court. You always want to be the one that's in control. And so, I definitely think those two things, lead generation and mindset, are by far the things that end up holding us back the most.
What's the most fulfilling thing that you found as an entrepreneur?
Impact by far. Yes. I mean, it's absolutely the most rewarding, fulfilling thing ever to get to see another female entrepreneur living her dream, because I've given her the support that she needed to believe in herself in the way that I already believed in her. And it could get me emotional just thinking about it. I mean, it's hard, right? As a female entrepreneur, and you're pulled in so many different directions, and you're required to wear so many different hats, and it can be overwhelming. And I get that. I experienced it myself. I have 2 kids. I'm a single mom. But what ends up I see happening too often is that we as female entrepreneurs get that sense of overwhelm, and what we believe the solution is to slow down. And that is what I would urge anyone listening to this podcast not to do, right? Because what you actually want to do is you want to get to the real root of the problem. And it's not always that you're doing too much. It's that sometimes you're just not doing enough of the right things. And so oftentimes we just need to shift right? Where you're spending your time, what you're spending your time doing, and right, helping you actually create the success in a shorter, more efficient amount of time than you are now, which will then open you up to spend more time with your family, right? More income buys more solutions. And so there's just like this small window where I see a lot of female entrepreneurs say it's not worth it. And they either close up shop or they begin that process of slowing down. And then as they slow down, right, it really becomes not worth it, right? Because it's something now that you're just trying to fit into the nooks and crannies and you're not earning enough income from it to really sacrifice your time for it. So you're not getting income benefits or lifestyle benefits now. So of course, it just seems like a better option not to do it anymore. And that's where I say I come in, that I just sort of see it as my role, my job is like to save more female entrepreneurs and keep them in business, as many as I possibly can, because the talent that you have as a female creative, which most of us are, is needed. It is necessary in the world. It is a gift you were given, right, when you were brought into this earth. And I want to help you continue to give that back to others. And what you have is valuable. And it absolutely breaks my heart when I hear someone say, I think I just couldn't make it work. I think that I'm just going to wrap it up. And I'm like, no, let's give it a try first. Let's work together. And I promise I can show you a better way. There is a better roadmap out there. So if you are struggling, please know that there are better ways.
Speeding up and slowing down, what has worked best for you when it comes to scaling your business? I know that when we spoke last week, you mentioned you have done it several different ways, but if you don't mind sharing that.
No, not at all. I have done it several different ways. I think it's so funny. I say I started this company in 2018. And since then, I've had about 5 different companies within the same company. And, just as I learn and grow myself, right, what I want evolves, and I allow the company to evolve with me. And that means, a couple of years ago, I thought my dream was to have a lot of employees and to have this, I don't know why, this great white conference room and everybody's sitting around the table and, reporting to me, and I'm leading the meeting. And at the beginning of 2023, I had that with 10 full-time employees and actually about 15 independent contractors. And I found myself feeling further away from the impact than I ever really wanted to be. I found myself managing a team and not being able to make the impact I wanted to. I couldn't go speak on a stage because I was dealing with, whatever payroll issue or something, And so the demands and the lifestyle that was created as a result of what I thought was my dream didn't actually fit me anymore, right? It wasn't something that I found fulfilling. And I do encourage everyone, to pursue fulfillment at the end of the day, right? I want both. And I'm not willing to give up or sacrifice, right, my time on this earth just to have one, right? Like a great lifestyle without the income or income without the lifestyle. I want both. And to me, it is both of those added together, income and lifestyle that you love, that is going to open up that sense of real fulfillment. And, a huge part of the lifestyle I loved was getting to interact with my clients face to face and, or on Zoom because they're all over the country, but being on stages and having that simplicity. And so I let everybody go. I completely eliminated that business model at the end of I started to at the beginning of fall of 2023. And by the end of the year, completely phased it out. And now am rebuilding the business just based on myself and one core program that I call the Sales Accelerator. And I'm doing what I love again. Interacting with clients, making an impact, getting to go back on stages, getting to do podcast interviews again, all things I didn't have time for. So, if there's a part of your business that's no longer a hell yes for you, then it's a hell no. And you got to change it. Sitting in it is only going to increase, right, the pain, like we talked about at the beginning. And I knew that. I had already experienced that. It doesn't get better by sitting on my hands. I knew I had to take action. I just had to figure out what the action was I needed to take. And for me, it was about, right, simplifying the business so that I could amplify the impact.
What advice would you give to someone who's interested in pivoting in their career?
I love this question. First, go read my book. I wrote a book called Hitting Rock Middle, and it just details and outlines my entire journey. I think one of the beautiful pieces of feedback that I've gotten from people is it just made me feel less alone. And that was one of the biggest things that I wanted to feel at that point in time is I am not crazy, which means I am not out on an island all by myself. I'm not the only one on the planet that is walking away from a very successful career to do something entirely different. You're not. And get, support in whatever form you feel comfortable. If it is just reading my book to hear someone else's story, great. If it is getting yourself, a life coach or a business coach, you can begin the journey long before you actually have to, turn it into a 7-figure company. I tell people all the time, just begin information gathering. That's all you're doing. Right? You don't have to have a client until you want to have one. You can set up an LLC. You can get your EIN. You can set up a name and domain and all the fun stuff and never do anything with it. And you'll barely be out $1. But maybe then you get an itch to take the next step and then the next step. You never know. But I do know that sitting in the inaction is never going to produce anything other than anxiousness. I think get support, find advice from people who have been where you are, who have wanted to pivot or have pivoted, and then get someone to, help guide you into the next phase. And then finally, I guess, spend time alone. Sit by yourself, journal, meditate, write. Reconnect with that voice within you that is calling you to do something greater than what you're doing at this moment in time. Because I believe that the pivot comes from within, right? That it comes from, right, your own soul saying, I've got more to give and I want to explore it. And we just need to be quiet enough sometimes to listen to it. And that's hard to do, but believe in that voice. It's right. It is correct. It is not lying to you. In fact, the ego is the thing that talks loudest and first, not your intuition. So if that small inkling you feel every so often is quiet, that actually might be the right voice to listen to and not the one that probably comes in right after that, like mine did, screaming like, that is the most idiotic thing you could possibly do. And it was like I was having 2 full conversations in my head. Those are a couple pieces of advice I would give someone who's pivoting.
How can our listeners find you?
On Instagram, it's the easiest way at the BRIMM, and that's BRIMM, and it's _BRIMM. You can go to our website, growwiththebrim.com. It's a great place to be able to get master classes, get freebies. I've got all kinds of things on there for business owners. I mean, take advantage. Some of the tools that I've used for years, like the Eisenhower Matrix, to be able to simplify your time and figure out what to focus on. I've got the masterclass on 5 ways to increase your revenue, entirely free. So really great resources for you. And then, of course, more information about our other programs too.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.